Hey art folks, it's Sadie and I am bringing you the second part of this huge spotlight on handmade watercolor brands. If you haven't seen part one, make sure to go over and watch that. I'll have the link in the description below. You don't want to miss any of these amazing handmade watercolor brands. Also, I will be having blog posts with more detail about all of these brands, so definitely check all of that in the description. As I said in the first video, this is a collab with Mickey of Melamic Art, and I'm so excited to do this with her and put a spotlight on these people who are working so hard to make us amazing paints. These are not my normal full-length reviews, but I just wanted to let you get to know some of these awesome makers. So this time we start again with one of my favorite paints to paint with, Eventually Everything Mixes by Ame in Berlin, Germany. Ame is an artist and she makes vegan paints out in Berlin. She has such an amazing eye for color that her paints are unmistakable. They just have a certain texture and a certain look and are so uniform. I love everything about them. They handle beautifully. If you have seen my narwhal painting for the last Animal Artist Collective video, most of the pigments in that were for Eventually Everything Mixes. If you like the special colors from Daniel Smith where the two colors separate from one another, then Ame's paints are the paints that you need to try out. They do smell quite strongly of clove, so if you could have a clove sensitivity, be aware of that. And when there are lots and lots of layers, the paints do lift a bit easily, but that is not mostly a problem. They blend amazingly wet and wet, amazingly in the palette. They are so vibrant and saturated. I love working with these. If you love granulating pigments, unique colors, you have to try out Eventually Everything Mixes. And not only would your purchase support an independent artist, but she also runs workshops helping people in Berlin get to know themselves creatively. Some of my favorite colors include Warlock, Flush, and Flush Deep, all of her ultramarine colors, the Oslo set, and her set that is inspired by Berlin. Because I mean, isn't Currywurst like the best name for a paint that you've ever heard? I really do appreciate that she has a range of different ultramarines, because normally you only find ultramarine blue, but you don't find different shades of ultramarine blue or ultramarine green. Although I think I might have gotten my hands on one of the last bits of ultramarine green. I'm sorry guys. She's currently in the middle of mixing up some fresh colors for the holiday season, so definitely check out her store. Her colors also go fast, so don't wait too long. Next are Fold the Sea watercolors by Char in New York. Actually, the set that I have is a very special set. This is the Aqua Gouache set, which is inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe. And I thought this was such an interesting idea because you know I love watercolor, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing this. And I also love gouache, and I liked the idea of having some kind of paint that is halfway in between watercolor and gouache. And I think a lot of people are looking for a kind of high quality panned gouache option. So I was really excited to see if this could fit the bill. One thing I have to say is that these colors are perfectly on point for a tribute to Georgia O'Keeffe. I absolutely love them. She put a lot of attention into making these colors, and you can tell they're just not the standard colors that you can find in every other line. Unfortunately, they were a bit difficult to re-wet. They come in a little screw top tin, which is really cute, and she also sent me some samples of sparkly colors, and I think I am absolutely in love with the black gold, which is a dark black color with gold sparkles. Unfortunately, these colors are pretty difficult to re-wet, and I don't feel that they did a great job of representing watercolors or gouache. They weren't quite opaque enough to work really as gouache, and they were not able to get transparent washes or even thin washes as a watercolor. The mixing ability for this particular set of colors was not so great. I did not have the best time painting the little mushroom sketch, and they definitely also had an issue with lifting even with few layers. But I really appreciate the concept of the aqua gouache, and if you were painting with fewer layers and more directly, these colors seem like they would be so much fun. She also just came out with a ton of new colors for the holiday season, so if you're interested in her color sense and you want to try out the watercolors, which I have not tried, I would definitely check that out. Next up is Lighthouse Cove. These are made by Maisie on a sailboat in Texas, which is such a cool thing to say. So Lighthouse Cove is a totally nautical themed watercolor brand, and as you can see in the unboxing, getting paints from her is for sure like getting 8 tons of little trinkets. You have your card, you have a little candy, there are stickers, there's washi. It's like the stuff just keeps coming, and they even come in a little cloth bag. It's absolutely adorable. On top of that, the paints are wrapped, and the wrapping paper has a little shell on them to complement the Lighthouse Cove nautical theme. As a girl who grew up by the water, I definitely felt an affinity for this aesthetic. I definitely felt an affinity for this water-based theme. Maisie is a pretty new watercolor paint maker, but she has been putting out a lot of paints. These paints are fun if you like the color mixes that she comes up with. They are a bit more opaque than other transparent watercolors, and if you mix them quite a lot, they have more of a tendency to become muddy. So I think working more directly is a better way to go. But her color choices are definitely cute, and her names like Mulled Cider, Sunflower, and Cinnamon and Sugar are very cute as well. Next is LIMN Colors by Amanda in California. If you don't follow her on Instagram, you definitely should. She did a series of posts on historical pigments, and I learned so much from it. You can tell that she really knows her stuff when it comes to the historical and scientific aspect of pigments, and you can really see that in her line. She has a combination of granulating paints and non-granulating paints, and even really new modern pigments that it's hard for me to find even in conventional watercolor brands. The colors are bright, they mix well. I find myself much more drawn to her granulating colors than anything else, particularly colors like the Caput Mortem, which is one of the most beautiful granulating violet hematites I've ever seen, and her graphite, which actually come in a set, and I would recommend anyone to get it if you are just a glutton for granulation. One of the things that I really wish that I could show you are her pans. She actually 3D prints her pans with a little tiny cute lid, and I kind of love this idea of bringing watercolor paints a bit more into the future in that aspect, as well as in the pigments. I also think that these little pans with their covers would be perfect for traveling, because then you don't need necessarily to have a whole palette. You can just pop them in your pocket and go. As much as I'm really excited about the modern pigments, unfortunately some of those were not as strong as I hoped that they would be, but overall this is a really interesting line to look out for. You can even see in the mushroom that I painted that the colors are kind of weak. I don't know if that is because of the paints or because I only have some dots, but I worked, yeah. Matteo Grilli from Brisbane, Australia. This line only has 10 colors. 10 colors. When you look at some of these other lines, they have 70 colors, 50 colors. So 10 seems super duper tiny, but these are the 10 colors that Matteo uses himself. He is an amazing wildlife artist. You have to go check out his paintings. They're absolutely beautiful, and he works with his own paints, and that is always a good sign. While when you swatch these colors out, they're not that impressive because, to be fair, they are standard colors. These are a workman's colors. It's obvious that he chose these 10 colors with a lot of attention and care because the range that you can make from them is great. I thought that it would be a much muddier palette with these colors considering how many browns there are, but you can get surprisingly vibrant colors, and the colors are very transparent, clean, they layer amazingly, they mix well on the paper and in the palette, they blend well together. My favorite thing has got to be his Indian yellow made with PY153. I almost honestly don't even want to tell you because I want to buy all of this because it's just a gorgeous color, and PY53 basically isn't available anymore. It is one of my favorite yellows, and his version is so beautiful and warm. I think one way that I could explain this is if you love the quality of Schmincke but you think that they are a bit too timid and weak, then Matteo's colors, which are made with Schmincke pigments and his own binder, give you that pow that you're looking for. One of the colors of his that I really enjoy is his Patchouli Red, which is this kind of burgundy, earthy color, but it is not too dull. It's a Pyroline maroon color, and you know how much I love my Pyrolines. Honestly, I have nothing but praise for Matteo's paints. They are great paints to work with, and I can totally see why he developed these paints for himself, and I'm thankful that he lets the rest of us use them too. These paints don't get in your way. They get out of the way and let you do what you need to do. So there's not any fancy packaging that comes with them or anything like that, but they are darn good paints. Next is Rivervale Watercolor made by Elizabeth in Arkansas. So I am so impressed with this line of colors as well. Elizabeth somehow manages to make a really wide range of colors in an amazing way. She has really modern colors, really granulating colors, really traditional colors, really transparent colors, and each and every one was amazing. They are so strong. You can see in my mixing chart and in my swatches, they are just bursting with colors, and I only have the dot samples. You have got to get these dot samples. It is such an amazing way to try out a ton of colors for extremely cheap, and because her colors are so pigmented, you will definitely be able to do a couple of paintings with these dots. Colors blend together well, they mix amazingly, they layer amazingly. I'm just so impressed with them. She even has Mayan colors and some pigments that I have never seen in any other brand. Really clear that she is just trying to make the best paints that she can, and I for one am so thankful. Since she has so many different colors, at the moment it's hard for me to choose a favorite, but I really love the Mayan blue and the Mayan red, and the Benzimita orange is just so saturated and gorgeous that I couldn't believe it at first when I painted the swatch. Just like Matteo Grilli, her paints don't come with a ton of packaging or anything like that, but they're just good paints. So if you want the packaging and things like that, these are not for you, but if you just want paints that are gonna be there for you, then I would recommend these. Now, last but certainly not least is STONEWORKS Mill. This is from a couple, Kelly and James in Maryland, and they have only been making paints for half a year. I cannot believe it because these are so unique. They have their own feeling, their own outlook, their own texture, and it's really beautiful. So this line of paint is very much inspired by the outdoors. Kelly, the wife, is the one who makes the paint, and her husband, James, is the one who actually sources some of these stones. They actually go out, get stones, and grind them and mold them themselves into paint. Not all of these are colors that are made that way, but some of them are. And they even have one color which is federal brick, which is literally made out of brick that they got from a very old house that was built in the 1600s. And I can't believe that they made paint out of that. And hearing stuff like that, you might be worried that these paints are very weak and not pigmented. The paints that are hand milled do have to have a bit of water on them to re-wet them, but then they paint out beautifully. If you have a clove allergy, these are very strong in clove. I would be careful about that. But if you don't, you are in for a treat. These colors are so moody, so deep. Some of them have a little bit of glitter in them. Many of them have really unique granulating textures. I am absolutely in love with how they mix wet and wet. I still can't get over it. It feels like there is so much atmosphere in the way their colors blend together. I did not have an issue with lifting. I was able to get dark, they mix well. The colors are not unusually opaque or gouache-like. It really was a pleasure painting with these paints. If you like the way that these pigments look, I would for sure try them out. And Kelly is such a nice person. Kelly is such a nice person, and what they are attempting to do with their lines of paint is really unique. The paints that are made from conventional pigments re-wet wonderfully. They're buttery smooth. They have not only regular pans, but they have these huge square pans, which I think will last absolutely forever. I can see myself using this for any kind of plein air painting. The colors fit amazingly. They might be a little muted for a Florida plein air session, but basically for anywhere else, they are perfect. I would definitely recommend that you try these out, especially that pink pipestone, which has such a unique granulating texture. Nimbus, which is just such a powerful indigo. I don't think I've ever seen an indigo this deep before. And Strata, which is also a granulating brown. And how could I forget Solstice, which I really love the warmth that it adds to this palette, which is mostly cool. I can't wait to see what they will continue doing with their brand as they continue to grow. Okay guys, so that was the 13 handmade watercolor makers spotlight. What did you think? Which one of these was your favorite? Which ones of these have you tried? Let me know. I'm so curious. I'm going to have blog posts accompanying each of these makers on my website, and I'll have the links in the description below. Thank you so much to all of the lovely watercolor makers for making paints for us and sharing their creativity. Definitely think about supporting smaller businesses this holiday. She's going to tell you all you need to know about the difference between handmade watercolors and conventional watercolors. I hope this was informative and fun. I will have full-length reviews of each of these brands in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons for being there with me and being understanding. I love you guys. See you guys next time. And until then, be gentle with yourself.